Good morning. Good morning and welcome to WNHH-FM's Dateline New Haven. I'm your host, Paul Bass, inviting you to look behind the headlines on the stories that make our community tick. Today we're going to visit with two New Haveners who are making things tick, one in Iowa and one in New Haven. We're going to speak by phone. He's on the line now with Westville Alder, Daryl Brackeen Jr. Daryl's in Iowa, where all heck broke loose last night and is continuing this morning at a botched first in the nation Democratic presidential nominating contest. If you're watching us on Facebook, you see Daryl's photo in the middle of me and Rodney live. That's from when he was here last Friday in the studio before he went out. And here in the studio, visiting with Rodney Williams. Rodney makes New Haven tick in many ways, including as an activist on policing and economic development issues, and as the owner of his own company, Green Elm Construction. Rodney's here in the studio. Good morning, Rodney. Good morning. And Rodney, I'm going to ask you to get the mic so close to you, it's almost touching you. And Daryl Brackeen, do we hear you on the line there?
Good morning, Paul. Good morning, Rodney.
Good morning.
Thanks so much for coming on, Daryl. I know you're busy. You're busy out there in Iowa. You were just there along with other people working for Joe Biden, getting votes out for the presidential caucus, the nominating contest for presidential candidates. How'd it go last night? Kind of smooth, like a New Haven election?
Actually, no, nothing like a New Haven election in any way, shape, or form.
Well, we did have a mess in 2018, but, that's another story.
Yep.
So no one knows how many votes, right? They said that they started putting the votes up on the New York Times and the AP, and then they took them all down and said that nobody knows, that everything went wrong and we don't know who voted for whom last night.
Well, let's take a huge step back. All of the information was imported into an app that was developed for the caucus purpose of results. They were responding to 2016 complaints concerning transparency of the results. And that app apparently went down.
But I thought also a lot of people didn't use the app. So I'm just going with what I read, Daryl, that there were three reasons they said we have no answers. That first, that they used this new app and the app went down. Secondly, a lot of people didn't want to use the app, so they said, let's call in results to a central number. But because they were reporting 3 times as many kinds of results, because the caucuses are complicated, how many votes on the first ballot, how many on the second, that the lines got jammed and they couldn't get it in. And that there's some other stuff going on too, but they said no hacking. I mean, what's your sense on the ground, Daryl?
Yeah, so I will definitely speak to my experience, and I'll go a little broader to what you're speaking to.
Okay.
I was in Marion precinct number 2, which is right outside Cedar Rapids.
Mariam is Merriam?
Marion.
Okay. And that's the name of a town?
Yes.
Okay.
And my understanding, actually, I spoke to the chair that we were working with on yesterday, and he said the app worked perfectly fine. He inputted all the results, and that was that. What he suspected happened was that there may have been a surge on the statewide level. So as far as we know, our information was submitted. Secondly, they came up with the wisdom to actually have a paper backup.
Oh, that's good.
So we also have that information.
And so now you were in Marion. So as I understood it from last week when you were on the show, you said that your job was on the weekend to go to all the people who were planning to show up at a caucus for Joe Biden and get to know them and make sure that they're on board. And then when Monday came, you were to go make sure they actually show up at the caucus. Is that what happened?
Yep, that's exactly what happened.
And how many people were you in charge of?
Well, this particular poll, we were expecting about 116 people out of 1,600 actual caucus locations statewide.
So this is one out of 1,600 caucus locations?
That's right.
And there were 116 people registered to be delegates?
116, I will say voters, so to speak, or caucusers.
And how many were identified as Biden people?
Eventually, so I was in charge of about 40 individuals who we wanted to make sure showed up we had about ultimately 37 of those individuals showing up to support Joe.
And does that mean the 116 was for all candidates and the 40 was your group?
That's right. That's right.
Now, how did you get them? Did you call them up? Did you knock on their door? Did you bring them a pizza? What was your method?
Yeah, no, the old-fashioned way. I actually went and knocked on doors. I must admit, everybody in the neighborhood that I was working in, they were totally prepared. So they knew caucus time was coming. They knew they had to make arrangements, and all they needed was to connect with somebody to have that heart-to-heart discussion.
And so then, where was the actual event?
So my district precinct was actually at City Hall, Marion City Hall.
And so what room was it in?
It would be the chamber, because it's the chamber of the mayor and city council. They elect the mayor out of the city council.
So you had the people show up, and in this room, what were there, about 100 people there ready to caucus?
116 eligible caucusers, and then, of course, families and children and other observers.
And then how many actually showed up of those 116?
No, that's how many caucusers showed up.
Oh, including your 37 who you wanted to vote for Biden.
That's right. That's right.
So what happened when the votes were cast?
So like you mentioned earlier, there are 2 rounds. So in the first round, we ensured that we had a space carved out for our supporters, of whom they all showed up mostly.
And they all stand, right? They stand in a place.
They didn't budge. Yep, they stayed right in our Joe's station. And I must admit, there was a pretty strong Bernie Sanders station and showing there as well.
Mm-hmm. And so what happened in the first round?
Essentially, the Bernie Sanders campaign and the Joe Biden campaign became what they call viable. Viability is determined on a 15% percentage.
So you needed about 17 or 18. You needed at least 17 or 18 people, right?
That's right. That's right.
And so you guys cleared out the rest. So then there was a second round, right? So your people stayed standing, and then the other candidates who didn't get 15%, their people then had to stand somewhere else for the second round, right?
Well, that's where it gets complicated. So,
Rodney, following this? Rodney and I are trying to follow this thing. Okay. And Jaywan Carter and Bud Metz said hi to Rodney. Thanks for listening. Thanks.
So this is where it gets a little more complicated. Elizabeth Warren, Pete Buttigieg, and Andrew Yang have supporters present. They obviously were not viable in that first round. But a couple of options. They could team up and make one candidate viable, or they can just choose to stick with their candidate and their vote just doesn't count in the next round.
So I thought in the second round they all go stand somewhere else. Like they would all choose each one to stand with either Bernie or Biden.
They could.
So what happened?
So what they chose to do was to make Elizabeth Warren viable in that first round.
Oh, wow. So how did they? So you still have a chance if you get under 15%. The other two can come up to you and say, "Let's all be for your candidate."
That's right.
Oh, I didn't realize you could do that. So it's not quite like ranked choice voting. So
no, it's not.
So then there were 3 candidates in the second round?
Yes, exactly.
So you mean Pete Buttigieg backers supported Warren and Yang backers supported Warren instead of Sanders?
That's essentially what happened. And of course, there were some additional Bernie folks that got switched over as well.
So, but that's really interesting to me, Darryl, because what we hear is that people are deciding either among the so-called moderates, Biden, Klobuchar, and Buttigieg, or between the so-called progressives, Warren and Sanders. But I think you're telling us, if I'm hearing you correctly, that it wasn't so clearly demarcated, that there were people who were for Yang and for Buttigieg who actually went to Warren instead and Bernie instead of to Biden.
That sounds about right.
So what was the final score? What was the final score?
Say that one more time.
What was the final score in your precinct?
Yes. So that's a great question. I just know the numbers we ended up with.
What did you end up with?
We ended up with 37. Bernie was definitely in first place after that first round. Elizabeth Warren ended up with 21.
Mm-hmm. So it sounds like Bernie got about 60 votes.
Probably, approximately.
So here's what I'm wondering now that we've gone through the numbers. Tell me if it sounds the same way to you, Rodney. It sounds to me that Biden's strength was not deep, that you had your hardcore and Darrell Burkeen did an excellent job getting the hardcore out. But that what really matters in these elections is where do you move the rest of the people? And it sounds like across the ideological spectrum, at least in Marion City Hall, which is one precinct out of 1,600, that all the people who were for candidates who didn't win went to someone other than Biden. Is that what happened? And did your heart kind of drop when that happened, Darrell? Or
well, in a way.
Like, how did you guys talk to him?
Definitely a strange process.
Yeah, I mean, like, did you have time to try to talk to him? Like, did you run up to Yang people and say, "Hey, Yang is saying that we gotta, think outside the box. My guy does that," or were you running up to Warren people?
Also, there's another layer that I totally missed. There were definitely individuals that did not move.
Mm-hmm.
So they stayed in the Pete circle, but they just were not viable.
Mm-hmm.
So everyone doesn't have to go anywhere, but some people did.
What I mean, Darrell, did you have a chance to try to convince anyone between those two rounds?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So what did you do?
Absolutely.
Did you go talk to people and try to make the case?
Oh yeah.
What did you tell them?
Well, essentially, what we saw was a majority of Pete people. They just didn't budge. They wanted somehow to figure out a plan to make Pete viable again. So that honestly was the fight that we were experiencing.
And they didn't end up uniting with Warren to get her over the top.
No.
So was it just Yang and Warren people who did that?
It was only 2 Yang people in the room anyway.
And did that get her over the top?
Right. And so she had about
19 before that?
Yeah. So she needed 18 to be viable. So she was 16 in the first round.
So then she got another 5. So where'd the 5 come from?
There was a mix. So there were some, because there were a lot of Bernie supporters. There were some Bernie supporters that were like, oh, okay, you know what? Everyone knows everyone, by the way. I should put that out there. So everyone's like, all right, let's just make Elizabeth viable because this is my neighbor.
That's so interesting. So
yeah,
Bernie
it was
people
very friendly.
So Bernie lost 3 people to get Warren over the top.
But Bernie had more than enough because ultimately we were only trying to get 3 delegates. I think ultimately they just wanted a delegate for each one of those campaigns.
I see. So there were 3 delegates at stake?
That's right.
So you all came out with 1 delegate?
That's right.
So we're talking to Darrell Burkeen. I'm here with Rodney Williams, WNHH Dateline New Haven. We're talking about the mess in Iowa. So Darrell, you just took us to the weeds, and I appreciate that. Now I want to ask you 2 big picture questions. The vote was a mess. We still don't know who won. What do you take from that? Given what you saw last night and what you're seeing today, what does that tell about our ability to conduct an election? What does what happened in Iowa last night mean for what we're already worried about in America, our ability to conduct an election?
That's a very great question. I think this goes back to something we talked about last week. Questioning really, should Iowa be the first one out the gate? And should the caucus be the determination of what should happen in the following primaries to come? So I can tell you that the sentiment is this caucus process is just not working. That's 1. And 2, we need a more diverse lineup because the state is not reflective of what America looks like and what the Democratic Party primary process.
Let me put that another way. Did you see anyone else black besides yourselves?
This is what we call, like, we were little sprinkles here and there. Yeah. So according to the exit polls, 91% of the caucus goers were white. Only 3% were African American.
Wow. So your 2 takeaways were this should not be the first in the state in Iowa, and this caucus system doesn't work.
Yep, that's it.
Other question, how's it look? This is not, and I don't want to be hard on you because we don't take a side here about which candidate. It doesn't seem like it was a good night for Biden. It doesn't seem like what you saw in City Hall and the numbers we were hearing before they pulled the plug on him last night it sounds like Biden not only wasn't going to win, but that even among the so-called moderates, where he was supposed to be way ahead, he was running behind Klobuchar and Buttigieg because that in those second rounds, it sounded like in places where they didn't have Darrell Brackeen bringing the numbers they needed, when Biden went under 15%, they went to other candidates. Is that what we saw?
Well, here, I have to say this, being on the ground, there are 1,600 locations that were open. And I'm just going to tell you, anyone who's drawing any conclusion at this point, it's cherry picked.
Yeah.
There's just no way. And by the way, there were also satellites outside of the state, which totaled all the caucus locations as to about 1,700 or so.
And, the funny part is Pete Buttigieg declared victory. I love that part. That was my fun.
Yeah.
And what were you saying, Rodney?
I don't know what victory was to him, but, each his own.
I just want to ask Rakeem, you're a young man. Do you feel like your age population is still looking to elect presidents that are like our grandparents? I just feel like
ooh, that's a good question.
We just had Obama. We got mayors being elected in our city. Young politician yourself. I'm just trying to figure out when do our age group, get a chance to determine what our future is, because a lot of these people that are running for president, they've been in politics for years, and their future right now is not necessarily the future of our kids.
Right, they're either going to the White House or assisted living.
Yeah, so I'm like, when are we gonna look at that? And like your age group come up and
Right. So based on my observation here in Iowa, it was very mixed. We actually had a lot of millennial families that were in the Joe Biden group. I believe there's like this down to earth connection with Joe, that he actually understands like where starting families are coming from. So I must admit, and the Bernie crowd was also an interesting mix as well, and it really wasn't dividing by age. That was one of my biggest surprises.
And then, so what's next with Darrell Brackeen? You going to New Hampshire? You sticking with Joe?
Oh no, I'm sticking with Joe all the way. We have 56 other contests to go through. As I stated to you, my opinion about these caucuses, I just don't think it's the right way to go about things. But I actually have pivoted. I'll be headed down to South Carolina and North Carolina in the next few weeks.
Oh, okay. You coming home? You coming home first?
Oh yeah, yep. I'll be home for about 2 weeks, and then headed down for their primary.
Well, Darrell Brackeen Jr., thank you so much for visiting us on Dateline New Haven. We gotta let you go so you can speak to WBUR's Here and Now. You're a man much in demand. Thank you so much for sharing your caucus experiences with us. Hope you have a safe travel home, and we'll see you when you come back to New Haven.
Thank you so much. Good to see you all.
Thank you. So Darrell Brackeen Jr. was with me and Rodney Williams here on Dateline New Haven, 103.5 FM, livestream.newhaven.org. We're talking about politics in Iowa. Rodney Williams, I want to talk to you about politics and business in New Haven. So last night, while Iowa was voting, you were in City Hall. You show up a lot of stuff.
Okay.
And you were at the State of the City address. That's the speech the new mayor gives every year before the Board of Aldermen to say how the city's going. I have to admit, I haven't gone to one in many, many years. I find them a little bit dull, unless someone is some great orator who has a great new message they want to send. Did that happen last night? Did Justin Elicker blow you away with a message for a direction of the city or the state of our city?
I would say that I would like to give him a grace period before I make that statement. He talked about a lot of things that's going on in our community, but how he's going to address them, I didn't hear that. So he do seem to know what some of our needs are, but unless he put the people in position that could help us, it's just talk right now. So,
he talked a lot about housing last night. Tom Breen has an article about it. We also have the full speech. But he said we're going to do a lot about trying to make sure that with this big construction boom we have in New Haven, and it's big, 1,000 apartments came online last few years, 3,000 more in the pipelines, more hotels to fill like Disneyland, or on the books at least, getting built. While we're speaking, Rodney Williams, you started talking about this 2 years ago. You were on Dateline New Haven, this very program, and you were saying this big boom's coming. Well, it's here. And you said, we got to find, like Justin Elko last night, you said, we got to make sure people got jobs in that boom and they got a place to live.
That's right.
So what needs to happen, in your opinion, as a city to have that prosperity shared?
Well, if you look at what's going on in our city is going to be a new city. Our population is going to change. A lot of the wards that are Black and Hispanic, because of the properties they're building, the residents that's coming in for the jobs. It seems like the jobs that are coming into our city, they aren't necessarily for the residents. Very few construction jobs we get. You see, they built the Q Bridge, and I think the Q Bridge actually was built to allow the people to actually come to our city to do what they're doing, and they're making a lot of money, and the residents here are not. We knew that this development was coming, but I don't feel like we trained or invested in our residents before it was coming. Because like right now, we got this big boom in construction, but in our schools, we're not teaching our kids nothing about construction, and I feel like we're failing them. And if we don't figure out how to exist here, this new city, we won't be able to live here. So if we can't help build this city where it economically impact us, we won't be able to live here.
So let's get brass tacks. What would you like to see happen?
I would like to see I would like to see the city invest in the residency. I would like to see that although developers are coming here, developers that come to our city that want to develop here, they should want to help the city grow, but also help the residents grow. We got project after project being pushed through our community, but if you go look on these jobs, very few on minority participation is on a job. And I understand that if there's no city money involved in it, that you can't make somebody do something. Everybody,
you can have influence. First of all, you can have the people ready to work, and they want to get along with you, even if you're not getting a tax break. You could say to them, without breaking any laws, "There's local talent here. You can hire them. Here's the list."
But the truth is, do they want to do that?
Okay, so let's talk about Rodney Williams. Rodney Williams has a construction company. It's called Green Elm Construction. So one of these big projects being built is a 201 Munson Street, almost 400 apartments, almost all of a market rate, where there used to be an abandoned factory that was polluting. So I actually think that's a win. Gets tax revenue, it's got people to go to stores. But early on, you were saying, let's make sure we have a part in building this.
That's right.
Now, you did. I don't think they're getting any tax breaks, but I think you did succeed in getting your company some work there, correct?
Yes, we did. Believe it or not, at that time, I also have another company called Right Way Landscaping. So
Right Wing?
Right Way. Right Way Landscaping.
So not right wing.
Yeah, so we had opportunity to go there and help. We took all the trees down in the stump removal.
How many trees was it?
Thousands. You know,
really?
It was a lot of trees.
Thousands, a lot. Really. That's like a forest.
We'll put it this way: it was hundreds. It was a lot. It looked like when the tornado hit up in Hamden. That's how that site looked after we dropped all the trees. So let me just say that much. It was a lot of trees over. What I liked about the project was that I got a chance to learn how to operate a John Deere 160. And what I say to people in this city is like, if we get an opportunity, we can learn. Like right now, my office is right across the street from the Q House, and I see the steel construction going up. So I see Q House being erected, and I see like 6 people erecting this Q House. And you know, to be honest, they don't look like the community. But them jobs right there, that welding, that erection of the steel, these are the things that need to be taught in our community. So when these projects come, you can't say we're not qualified. So until we identify the avenues, the work that we should teach, are we really trying to help our kids?
All right, Bud Mitch says New Haven's going to be the powerhouse for Connecticut economy. Harry Joe says, judging by reports, Joe Biden and much of a crowd. Jaywan Carter, great to hear from you, Jaywan. We fail when we integrate and the middle and higher tier and politically connected and not work alongside us. So, Roddy, let's go back to Right Way Construction. Is it RIGHT? Right Way Landscape, I mean?
Yes.
So you got a gig taking trees out, hundreds of trees from this property so they could build this building.
12 acres.
12 acres. That's a hard job. But you had never done that before, right?
No, I haven't.
So how did it come about that you got a job you didn't do before?
Well, I just feel like I know people.
No, how did it come about?
It came about because I supported the project, And what the developer main thing was that he wanted to make sure that people in the community got jobs on
So
that
he
job.
agreed, even though he didn't have to. He heard pressure from the community. He wanted to get along with the community. That's what I was saying earlier.
Oh,
There
yeah.
are levers.
Oh yeah.
So then, which developer was it?
AAA Development was Doug from 201 Munson. And even right now, the developers that are doing the project right now, their goals are still high in the community. We just now did OSHA training. We're looking to do like at least.
Let me get back to steel. I want to get the landscaping first.
Okay.
So he said, here, you can have a landscaping gig. Now, did you tell him, okay, I know how to do landscaping. I've never done trees before.
What I told him was that I have guys that are capable of taking down trees. And that's exactly what I did. Because in our community, there are a lot of people in our community that are capable of doing jobs. We just don't get the opportunity.
But you still had to learn something new, right?
Oh, yeah.
So how did you learn it? And what did you learn?
I learned, the first thing I did was I made sure I hired people that knew how to drop these trees.
Mm-hmm.
Once they dropped the trees, Paul, and he was on the ground, only thing we had to do then is to go chop them up and drag them to the chipper and chip them up. So I made sure that the people who dropped them were professional tree choppers, and they looked like me, believe it or not. They dropped them.
How'd you find them?
Believe it or not, they right in our community.
Mm-hmm.
They doing jobs all around the city and all around the state.
So what does a John Deere 160 do?
A John Deere 160 is capable of knocking trees down. Is capable of doing excavation. Like when you look across the street, they using the equipment they operating across the street, knocking that building down. Mm-hmm. I was operating a machine that big right there.
So you learned yourself how to operate a Junior 160. Who taught you?
I did. I put it in turtle because I know how to run. I know how to run a skidster. So
I don't know what any of those things are. What's
a
turtle?
skidster is a little bobcat. So on the machine, you actually have speeds. So it's turtle is slow and rabbit is fast. Mm-hmm. So if you put it in slow, it's gonna operate very slow.
But anyways, like you told me you did something you never did before with this machine. And what was that? Take the stump out?
Take the stump out, knock trees down, dig, all kind of stuff.
So you personally, with the John Deere 160, took out a stump. You'd never done that before.
That's right.
Who showed you how to do that?
It's easy. I'm 53 years old. I've been in construction all my life. I watch people operate machinery.
So no one said, Rodney, here's what you do with the John Deere 160.
No.
But this job gave you the opportunity to learn a new deal. What's involved in taking a stump out? Because these are old trees, right?
Yes. What's involved in taking a stump out is that you have to dig around the stump and then dig deep down and get up underneath it and pop it.
Was it fun?
Yeah, it was like a little kid, watching stuff on TV when you're little or something. It was great.
What was it like when you did the first one? Did you get it right in the first try?
No, it took me a little while. But these are the things, like when you look at the people who's operating the machinery right now, very few look like me. We don't have opportunities like that.
Right.
And it's like,
but you got this opportunity.
Right.
So now are you going to get other gigs with the trees?
Yes.
So where are you getting that?
I don't know. I don't know right now where I'm gonna get it from. But
so this is what I'm trying to get at, Rodney. When something happened good to you, you got involved in a process. You let someone who's coming in this boom hear that the community expects you to hire local people. He hired you. You found people who look like you in the community to help do the job. You also got an opportunity to stretch. You're 53, but you learned something new that you can now use on other jobs. Let's take what happened in that experience. How would you make that happen on a larger scale in New Haven?
Well, here's what I'm going to tell you. The right way landscape, when you're looking at the landscaping commitment compared to the construction commitment, I will focus more on the construction because the landscaping job compared to construction is $100 million. So they're doing $50 million, $100 million. When you look at tree removal, that's a small amount of money compared to erecting the project. So I could impact the community in a better way doing construction. That's why we opened up Green Elm Construction.
And Green Elm is on Dixwell Ave.
Yes, it is.
And you're watching the Q house go up.
Yes, I am.
They're erecting steel right now.
Yes, they are.
And it's white people.
Yes.
So what would get opportunities for other people to do that steel? How would that happen? Does it start with getting kids in school who learn how to do it? Is it like this where they hire subs who have done certain work and they teach them some other skills?
Well, I think that we see this happens all the time when the steel, very, very few minorities get trained for that. I think that we need to educate our kids and if it's about them really having the future, identify areas where very few minorities actually get opportunities. And that right there is a great opportunity because most projects that go up with steel, very few minorities are on them. And I think that we need to find ways to train, identify people who are interested in them fields, and train them. We're not investing in the future of our kids.
So where would you do that investment with? Through the city job training program? Would you have construction trades do apprenticeships? Would you do Hill House High School the way they do with future cops?
Yeah, I would say all of them areas, and also we should reach out to the people who actually doing the steel construction and see if we could get them to do some type of apprenticeship program themselves. Because most of these projects, they have requirements that they're supposed to fulfill, and the problem is they can't fulfill these requirements because very few people in the black community know how to do the steel, so they don't hit their marks. But when you look at a project supposed to be 10% this and 15% that in all areas, and they don't, they should correct the math, and instead of another project that we do be 10%, it should be 12%. Because right now, if we're not getting 10% of that, but we getting 10% of something else, why don't we get 15% of something else? Because we didn't get none of this.
And Julian Carter says we're not chosen our mentors. We both learned through self-teaching and YouTube for skid steers. Bud Mensch, Rodney Williams is correct about training people for them kind of jobs, welders, steel workers. Bob McCormick asked, and I'll get to that just to remind people you're listening to Dateline New Haven. Rodney Williams here, WNHH 103.5 FM, live streamed at newhavenindependent.org. Bob McCormick asks, how many people work along with you, Rodney, and your two companies?
We just now finished up with the Green Elm construction. We did Housing Authority project. We probably had like about 9 people over there working.
And you do it, it's not like full-time staff, right? It's people per job, right?
Yes, per job. The projects that we got going right now, I'm hoping that once they close everything up with the Munson Street development, I'm looking to at least hire 20 to 25 people full-time, ongoing for like several years.
So what were you doing with the Housing Authority?
Housing Authority, we did Waverly, we did sheetrocking, taping, we did some paint, we helped take siding off over at Waverly projects.
Waverly Elm. And what else? What's the latest job that Right Way Landscaping's done?
Tell you the truth, once Green Elm came in, I've been focusing heavy on that because when you look at the development, what's going on, the boom is construction. You know, we always stay with the Right Way too, because landscaping purposes, we probably going to be doing some stuff with Housing Authority.
Can you get some training on the steel?
I sit there and I watch them erect it, and I feel like we're capable of doing that too.
So what can you do about it?
I think that I would say the mayor, the alders, we need to have conversations on how we sit to the table and try to figure out. It's not just me. It got to be a group effort. It's like I can only make suggestions on how to help the community, but the people who really make the decisions got to believe that will help. And if they don't believe, then it's not going to help us.
Well, you got at least one of those people on your side. Alder Honda Smith is listening. Thank you for listening, Honda. She says we need trade jobs. Not everyone is college material. Keep fighting Rock. So they call you Rock.
That's right.
How'd you get the name
Rock? Believe it or not, when I was young, I grew up in New Holtville. Rodney Williams, and everybody just,
this nickname stuck.
Now,
did you grow up? What did you think you were going to want to do when you're growing up? What did you dream of being?
If you look in my yearbook, I graduated from Hill House 1984. It said I'm gonna do construction. So
oh yeah,
everybody in my class know that what I said I was gonna do, that's what I'm doing.
And then did you do that right away, or did you do some other things first?
I did that. I was
doing construction since then.
Since then, I was a correction officer. I worked at Whaley Avenue. I worked that second shift, but I always did my construction in the daytime. But I've always been construction.
You're a hard worker.
Oh yeah.
And J1 says that Rosa DeLauro is now chair of appropriation in Congress. I guess he's saying maybe she can direct some money if you talk to her. What about the Greater New Haven Business Professional Association? That's been the umbrella for African-American contractors and other businesses. They do training programs. They try to represent the group when Trade Work's been handing out. Do you do any work with them? Do they help you out?
I know a lot of members there. I'm going to tell you that this problem is on a bigger level. The people that you're talking about, Greater Business Professional, it's another level, and unless we identify that on the next level, that's where it need to flow from. It's not flowing from that next level, and that's why we're stuck where we at right now. So if you look at what's going on right now in our city, the amount of construction that's going on, the amount of work, like hundreds of millions of dollars, I would like anybody to call in right now and say that, they've done several $1 million worth of work in the city, and they look like me.
All right. And the people listening to you, Budman says more trade schools. Daryl Brecking Jr. says Rodney Rock Williams is a man with a plan to ensure that our New Haven community is empowered economically. Hashtag New Haven has a story. Hashtag mogul. Rodney Williams, you've also been involved in activism on the criminal justice system. You were on a task force that it didn't seem to me like it ended up having a lot of impact. After an incident years ago in St. Patrick's Day Parade, white officers threw a handcuffed teenage African-American girl to the ground, hurt her. They were not in any kind of danger. I was captured on video. You were part of a big group of people who met for many, many months and produced a report saying how we're going to do policing differently. Did anything come out of that?
I'm just gonna be honest with you. Like, I've never wanted to hold back. I just felt like I was working in Massachusetts, leaving there, coming back here, because I felt like in my community it was important for me to go to the meetings because they needed a voice, and I think that I don't know what the agenda was for the task force, but I know what mine was. Mine was to discuss what's happening in our community and what we need to stop the police from doing. And I think as time went on, was worrying about what we were saying. I don't think that they really.
So tough. We have a problem. We get a lot of people in the room for a lot of months to talk, and they're really good people. I think everyone would like to do better, but I've rarely seen the task force change anything. I could be wrong about that. I think that's what politicians do when they don't know what to do or if they just want to get people off their back.
Well, I wouldn't say that it changed a lot. I was just disappointed how it's still sitting right now. It was never dismantled. It's like
what is the state of policing in New Haven? How are we doing?
When you ask different people say different things.
What does Rock say?
Rock said that we still have some work to do. I think that a lot of times we talk about crime is down, but when crime is up, nobody talk about that. I think that our community need to get credit for crime being down, because in our community, it's always going to be beef ball, but it's how we resolve beef. Meaning that years ago, a lot of people was doing a lot of shooting, and a lot of crime with the shooting is down. But that's because we as people, we respect each other a little better. And I've never seen the community get any credit for how we have evolved, how we changed, how we ourselves brought crime down. It's not the fact that the police brought crime down. We as people have brought crime down too. And I think the community needs credit for that. And I've never heard nobody give the community no credit. And I think that they're wrong for that. Like, they need to acknowledge the fact that sometimes I ride around my community, I don't see the police. So is crime down because of what? I don't see them. So they're not riding around where I see them where they bring it down. But the fact is, how we interact with each other, we bring it down.
Bob McCormick asks you, do you think the Handman cop, Devin Eaton, should be fired and go to jail after 13 shots fired at a car in Argyle Street last year where his target was your nephew, Paul Witherspoon?
I think that as time went on, we realized that the unions are protecting the police. And just like in our community, we have a handful of people that honestly, we need to figure out how to get arrested and put in jail for the things that they're doing in our community. But we also have a handful of cops that on the police department need to figure out how to get fired. But the union is protecting them.
Now, what did they do that was inappropriate in the case of Devin Eaton?
I just feel like once the commission decided that they was going to move on terminating him, the big thing was he shouldn't get fired. He was reckless. Anybody and everybody in this country saw that video.
So a lot of people think he was reckless. He should be fired. But some people think he should be fired according to a process that has union rights because everybody needs protection of a union. So you're innocent until proven guilty. We saw this video. What he did was wrong. And there's a whole process in place where before they bring you up on charges, you get interviewed. They do an investigation. You get to have a lawyer present. and that kind of stuff. Do you think that they should have just not gone through that process?
Listen, it's 2020. When you talk about a process, but then when something happened, when somebody in the community do something, they hang us right up. You know what I mean? So the process is different when it's the police compared to when it's us. Because let somebody do something to the police, like when, not trying to be disrespectful, when an officer in New Haven got shot, they brought tactical teams in, beating on everybody's door, looking for the person that shot the cop. But when we get shot, we don't get the same level of what happens. I think as life is life, it don't matter if you're officer or person, that when somebody get killed, a loved one is lost. And there should be no difference in you getting killed and me getting killed. We should be on the same level. But when you look at the police, it's like, I don't, I appreciate what they do in our community. But I just think that when somebody die, it's like somebody's gone. And it shouldn't be you different than me.
Yeah, right. Rodney Williams speaking here on Dateline New Haven, WNHHF home, your home for community radio, 103.5, live streamed at newhavenindependent.org. So what would you like to see happen in New Haven Police Department? You see any reforms that came out of your work with that task force? Do you think they're doing the best they can with limited money? Should we hire more cops? Are you interested in the work of the Civilian Review Board that's coming up?
Man, you know, I think that the New Haven PD in 2020 and moving forward, I think we need to figure out how to build a relationship. Everybody say community policing, but we need to work on that, because it's not. Sometimes I just feel like it's policing, that take the community out of it, and you just be the police. And when you respond, we understand you just the police. We need to build a relationship where residents respect the police, but they also respect us. Because sometimes you get pulled over by the cops and you go to ask them a question, and it's like they just flip on you, like, how dare you even ask them anything? I don't think that they taught them that in training. The professionalism, they need to work on that. And I'm not saying that the community is always perfect too, but I just think that they're building. We need to build a relationship from them to us, and every once in a while, make sure we build it and we gonna connect. Because it don't seem like it's working. And then when you look at the fact that officers are shooting people, it's just a matter of time. If this relationship don't change, it's only gonna get worse.
That West Haven one was tough with the state police.
Yeah, like when I saw that happen to my nephew, like,
I can't believe that people and that. Well, nephew one, I don't think anyone defended the cop who was black. In the West Haven shooting, the state cop was white. We saw that video, and I'm still trying to figure out how people are coming up with excuses for why that officer, when they had a man penned in a car with his window up and his door closed, he supposedly had a knife, why there was a need to break a window and fire 7 shots at point blank range and kill somebody.
What I don't understand is this, that if officers are trained to shoot, and I'm coming at you with a weapon, and I have a gun and you got a gun, I can understand you having to use deadly force. But why is it deadly force? Why is deadly force being used on people that got knives? Like, you could shoot me in the leg. Why are they being trained to kill? Like, I still don't understand that.
And before we let you go, Rodney, anything else we should know about what's next for Rodney Williams? So you're looking to grow Green Elm Construction. You want to get up to 20, 25 people. You want to get enough work for that. You're looking to have city officials, alders, mayor, get together as a group to try to find ways to train people and connect people more from New Haven who look like you into this construction boom, bringing hundreds of millions of dollars in of new work so that people can afford to live here and be part of the prosperity. Any other plans you got for getting involved in politics or the discussion in other ways? Because you've been a real part of the discussion in New Haven. We see you everywhere we go for our articles.
Well, I'm not going to necessarily get too much more involved in politics right now. I think the best thing that I could do to help my communities focus on creating jobs and opportunities. I think that's the best way to help if I really want to help them feed their families.
Well, keep at it, Rodney Williams. We're glad you're around.
Yeah.
I hope that you get the 2025, and then I hope you get the 50, and I hope you get more.
Paul, trust me, I'm going to get there.
And I hope your voice is still heard, because your voice is important about how we want to make sure those opportunities are available on a broader scale in New Haven.
Appreciate it.
All right. Well, thank you, Rodney Williams. Thanks, folks, for listening in today at WNHH. Thanks to the number one miracle man behind the controls, WNHH Station Manager Harry Drost. Deborah Keene, thanks for checking in from Iowa. And then also setting a comment from Rodney. And thanks to our guest, Rodney Williams of Green Elm Construction. We're going to take it out with the Afro-Semitic Experience, performing I Wish I Knew How It Would Feel to Be Free from the group CD, A Plea for Peace. This is Paul Bass inviting you to fly free with us all day long and all night at WNHH, New Haven's home for community radio.